The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Today we continue with Dogen's chapter on Genjo Koan, the problem of everyday life. He says, the moon reflected in water is the same as the enlightenment that a person can reach. The moon is not wetted by the water, and the water does not become disturbed. However much light the moon may radiate, its reflection can still be seen in a puddle. In the same way, the full moon and the limitless sky may be seen reflected in a single dewdrop suspended from a grass blade. It's beautiful. Yeah. Well, this section is interpreted in different ways by different people. Reverend Master Jiyu said that when we have just a little glimpse of the truth, however fleeting it may be, we're seeing the whole of it just for that brief moment. It's not separate, it's not different. It's not a smaller truth than the Buddha's truth, but it's a kind of flashes and then it's gone. So, and it's the same as just the full moon is reflected in a dewdrop or a blade of, or a puddle. It's the whole of the full moon is reflected. It's not a little moon. Even if it might be a small dewdrop or a small puddle, that moon is still reflected. The sky is still reflected. However, the deeper and the greater our seeing of that truth, the more clearly we'll see it and the more it will change our life. If you have a very fleeting glimpse, it's like, it can change your whole life. And yet, if you have a deeper understanding of it, it's the same truth, but to understand it more deeply and clearly, then it changes your life maybe in deeper ways, maybe not, but it somehow seems greater. But it's still the same truth. We can't limit it, it doesn't limit us. Like we can't limit this moon, the moon doesn't limit us. And we can't cling on to any little glimpse, however big a glimpse or a small glimpse. We can't cling on to it, it's not our personal possession. We just have a memory that can get distorted actually over time if we hang on to it and keep recreating it. We lose the immediacy of it because it was just a moment, it's gone. When someone has an incomplete knowledge of the truth, he feels that he already knows enough. And when he has understood the truth fully, he feels sure that something is lacking. When someone grasps onto their little experience of truth, their little tiny glimpse, and think they're enlightened, which is easy to do, they can have problems. Because they haven't really understood that it's not a matter of an enlightened self, an enlightened me, here I am. I've had this wonderful experience, I'm enlightened. And there's been many examples of this, people thinking they're deeply enlightened and starting to teach other people when they're actually not ready, because they haven't done the practice, the constant working on self and keeping to the precepts and so on. And so they can mislead other people. Even with the best of intentions, you can get really sincere people who think they're greatly enlightened and they're not. So this is a trap people can fall into. And just to have compassion for that, not to think they're deliberately deluding people, because they may think, actually I have the whole truth, I think I'm completely enlightened, and they may not be. Someone wrote a book called Halfway Up the Mountain, which describes exactly this, teachers thinking they're enlightened when they're only halfway up the mountain. On the other hand, when somebody's gone a lot further and they know the truth more fully, maybe had a bigger understanding, or whatever that means, understands the truth more deeply, then they know there's more to do. There's always more training to be done. We're always going on, always becoming Buddha. We're never done. We've never completely arrived. And Reverend Master Jiyu said this over and over and over again. She said, well, she felt she'd never finished her training. She was always continuing, doing more. It wasn't like, oh, here I am, I've had experiences, wonderful, I've arrived. It was never like that. She always was open to learning more, going more deeply into her training. And she said, Shakyamuni Buddha always wore his robe and carried his begging bowl. He was always doing his training as a monk. He never thought he was beyond that. Dogen gives us an analogy. I like analogies. He says, if you're out in the middle of the ocean, it can look as though it's round. And in fact, it's not round at all. It has many characteristics that we don't even see. We just don't see them all. All we see is this round disk of ocean, People see the ocean in different ways. Different beings see the ocean in different ways. Fish see it quite differently from us. We all have just a little partial view. And that seeing of the ocean as round when you're out in the middle of the ocean, out in the middle of the sea, it only happens for a short time when you're out there, and actually changes all the time because there's waves on the ocean, it comes and goes, things changes. It's not a static thing like, right, I see it all now. And similarly, when we train, if we have a little understanding of truth, we don't see the whole picture. We may have this little glimpse, but there's always more to learn, more to understand. Dogen says, we must view all things bearing this in mind. We only have a limited view of whatever it might be, all the things of our life. We don't see the whole thing. We never see the whole thing. We have had this little glimpse of the whole truth, but it's only a little glimpse. It's not, we don't, get it all, as it were. Just have this little glimpse, maybe. So we only have this little limited view. We just see from where we are, as we said yesterday. We just have our view. The other side may be in shadow. What else there is, we may not have seen yet. There are many things within the world of enlightenment, but the Zen trainee can only see as far as his present understanding permits him. We can only see our own view, and we don't know there's a whole lot more. And that's why we might tend to think we know it all when you've just had this little glimpse. Oh, great, I see the bigger picture. But the picture's bigger than our bigger picture, And as we go on, we realize there's a whole lot more that we haven't really seen. We train more deeply. People who have experiences may have deeper experiences, like Reverend Master Jiyu and some others, and they realize that actually they don't know that much. So we always know, if the more you go on, the more you realize there's a whole lot more to this than I know. I will never completely probably grasp the whole thing. We're just human beings, we're not omniscient. And even though the little glimpse might have been a glimpse of the whole truth, like this reflected moon, it's still just a very short little glimpse. And we have to live by it and understand it more fully, just not holding on to our little glimpse, but just entrusting ourselves to that which is deeper, that we might have glimpsed for a moment. We can't cling on to our little experience, but there's something that we saw for a moment, maybe. And when we think of enlightenment as an ongoing training rather than a little flash, this makes more sense, because we continue to do our training, we continue with the practice, we're never done. As Dogen keeps saying, and Reverend Master Jiyu kept saying, you've never finished your training. You always keep going on, always becoming Buddha. So thinking of enlightenment as it was more of an ongoing process than a little brief moment, it makes sense that as we go on, we realize there's a whole lot we don't know, and more we realize that. If we want to know the truth, says Dogen, we have to know that the ocean and the mountains have many other attributes that we haven't seen yet, and there are many other worlds that we haven't even seen. There's all kinds of stuff going on that we have no idea about, and because we don't see it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it's right here. The truth is right here. Buddha nature is right here. It's not somewhere else. It's because a single little drop of water, in a sense, contains the whole of the ocean, and the ocean contains that little drop of water. It's not separate. So our little glimpse, or our little training, or our little understanding, or however imperfect our training seems to be, in a sense, it embodies the whole thing, because we're doing our best, we're doing the practice, we're manifesting our innate enlightenment by doing the practice, just as Dogen says. Because Buddha nature is right here, it's never somewhere else. It's right here, we're standing right here where we stand or sit, not somewhere else that we're trying to get to. The ocean is limitless, no matter how far fish may swim therein. The sky is limitless, no matter how far a bird may fly therein. From the very beginning of all things, both the fish and the birds have been one with the ocean and the sky, respectively. The fish don't know anything other than water. They don't know they're swimming in water because this is their life, They don't know they're in an ocean. They're just living their life. And the birds, they only know the sky. They don't think, here I am, this is the sky. They just fly around and live their life and do what they do. And for a fish or a bird, there's no limit to the ocean or the sky. Fish just swim and swim and swim. And for birds, the sky is limitless. There's not a sudden glass wall there, Ideally, they do bang into skyscrapers, but that's another matter. Understand clearly that when a great need appears, a great use appears also. When there is a small need, there is small use. It is obvious then that full use is made of all things at all times, according to the necessity thereof. So when a bird needs to fly a long way, there's limitless sky. When a fish has to swim a long way, there's limitless water. And when they just live in a little local place, well, that's what they have. And for us too, when we have a great need, we make use of whatever we can find. It's amazing how inventive we can be when we have to be. And things help us. People come by and help us. Things open up for us in ways we never expected sometimes. We're just open to that and ask for help, actually, of people, or just asking, please give me help, something greater than us. Please help me with this. Everything can help us. Anything can help us. When there's a great need, there is a great use. We very often find help. And when we don't receive the help we're asking for, sometimes we receive something else that actually can help us, even if it's really difficult, not what we wanted at all. It can really help us in ways we didn't expect. When birds are out of unity with the sky, or fish out of unity with the ocean, they die. For the life of fish is lived in the ocean, and the life of birds is lived in the sky. It is equally true that the life of the sky is lived in the birds, and the life of the ocean is lived in the fish. Birds are life, and fish are life. We are life. It's the same for us. We live our life as part of the universe. We're not separate from that. We're part of the life of Buddha. No matter what our life may be, we're part of that life. We're not separate. It's not like Buddha nature's going on and here I am somewhere else. We are part of it. We breathe it. It's our very nature. In a sense, we don't know it, as the birds don't know they're living in the air, the fish don't know they're living in the water. We don't know we're living in Buddha nature until we really try to understand that. As Dogen says, in spite of the facts of training and enlightenment, and variations in the length of a person's lifespan, all ways of living are the very personification of the truth. Whether or not we're training, whether or not we are manifesting our enlightenment, whether we see truth or not, whether we live for a long time or have a very short life, all our different ways of living are the very personification of truth. We are part of the life of Buddha, the very manifestation of Buddha nature. No matter what it looks like, no matter what people do, we're all part of that. Nobody is outside it, no matter what it looks like, no matter what they may get up to. And it's helpful to remember that all beings are part of that life of Buddha. Nobody is outside it. So nobody is outside being worthy of respect and sympathy, Nevertheless, says Dogen, should a fish try to go beyond the limitations of the ocean, or a bird beyond the limitations of the sky, there will be no resting place for either. And the same for us. If we strive to get to some distant goal, we'll never be content. We'll always be looking for something more. We can't be happy, just content where we are, living our life, living the life of Buddha, breathing the life of Buddha. We have it right here under our feet, in our very body. We don't have to go off looking for it somewhere else. And we still need to do the practice. There's no doubt about that. We have to do the practice. Should you touch the truth, Your every action will be vital and express the way naturally. For your every action will be fully understood and digested truth, performed in the ordinary daily activities of an ordinary person. Touching the truth, I like that. We don't get the truth, we don't grab it, we touch it. It's not ours, we can't grab onto it, it's not our personal possession. We might touch the truth, but we can't hold on to it. And we don't become some special person doing special things. Just the ordinary daily activities of an ordinary person, that's us. Just living our ordinary daily life, but in a completely different way from how you might have lived before, because we see things differently. We do things differently. We're no longer panting after things, trying to get somewhere, trying to get something we think we don't have. Because we have the truth right here, and we know it. We're living our life fully. And the more we train and practice our enlightenment, our innate enlightenment, the more we know that. We may not know it intellectually, or we may only know it intellectually, or feel we do. We may not have great illuminating, flashes of enlightenment, but something in us knows, gradually knows more and more. I have it here. I don't need to be here looking somewhere else. Just doing the practice, just doing the best we can. Our simple daily meditation and keeping to the precepts, not trying to be some special person. That is it. That's our training. That's all we, in a sense, all we have to do. This truth can never be understood as a result of conceptual duality, such as big and small, or subject and object. The way of truth existed from the very beginning, and makes no special appearance now, which is just as it should be. It's always been here. We've always been living right within it, just as the fish have always lived in the water and the birds have always lived in the sky, without even knowing it, because it's their life and it's our life. It's always been here, just as it should be. It is because the way of truth is as stated above that, after taking up one thing, you understand that one thing, and after finishing a practice, you understand that practice. This is the way in which Buddhism itself is practiced. Putting the teaching into practice. When you hear the teaching, we have to put it into practice, and then we can understand it for ourselves, with our body and our heart more than with our brain. We have to put it into practice. Practice the truth, practice the meditation, practice the precepts, practice our innate enlightenment. It is not possible for us to know clearly when we are giving deep expression to the way of truth, since it is an action which arises simultaneously and synonymously with Buddhist study. You have to remember that when Dogen says study, he's not talking about books and erudition, he's talking about practice, practicing the way, doing the meditation, keeping to the precepts. It's not studying books. You think Buddhist study, oh my goodness, what am I going to study? But no, it's just a matter of doing the practice, just as we have been. And when we're simply doing what needs to be done, it's not possible for us to know clearly when we're giving deep expression to the way of truth, because we're just doing what needs to be done. We're not thinking, I'm giving expression to the truth, otherwise we're missing the point, We're just doing the next thing. Thinking of Reverend Master Jiu and Sorjiji, she talked about the old cook washing the dishes. Everybody else has gone at a ceremony or something, and he was just quietly washing the dishes. The old cook, the chief cook, washing the dishes. He probably could have had somebody else do it, but he was just quietly doing his job, washing the dishes. And she said he shone, but he had no idea that he was. He was just washing the dishes. He wasn't thinking, I'm expressing the way of truth. I will be a good example for this, Jiu Kennett person. He was just washing the dishes. And he was one of the people who were kind to her. The old monks would be kind to her, and saw her sincerity, and she would see them shine like that, just doing the practice, not trying to be somebody, do something special. Really, that's exactly it. It is wrong to believe that one is fully aware of being enlightened as personal knowledge, even after enlightenment. That which is intuitive cannot necessarily be given easy expression and definite form, even though enlightenment is already ours. We don't have to worry about whether we're enlightened or not. We just do the training. And we're not fully aware of being enlightened. Even after enlightenment, we don't think, oh yes, I'm enlightened now. Not at all. We just do the practice, just like the old cook. And if we have some understanding, we still have to keep going and train ourselves just as we did before, maybe harder than we did before, because we know more what we need to do. You see more clearly where you need to do the work. Just as Reverend Master Jiu saw, oh, I need to learn some things here. We're never done. We always have to train ourselves. And thinking we're enlightened is an impediment, as we said before. We might think we were some special person who had something that nobody else had, but clearly not. It wouldn't be enlightenment, it would be self-crazed with the madness of, inebriated with the madness of self. I love that. And we always have to just do our training. Now Dogen has a story to illustrate this. One summer day, a Zen teacher sat fanning himself when a monk asked, "Since the nature of wind is stationary and universally present, why do you use a fan?" The teacher replied, "Although you know its nature to be stationary, you do not know why it is universally present." "Why is it universally present?" asked the monk. For answer, the teacher merely continued fanning himself, and the monk bowed. The true way of transmission and enlightenment, which is the result of real experience, is the same as this. Well, in this story, the wind represents Buddha nature. And using the fan is a metaphor for training, so the teacher's fanning himself. And this smart little monk comes out and says, "Since the wind's everywhere, why are you using a fan? Since Buddha nature's there, why are you training?" We still need to train ourselves so that we can know it for ourselves and so that it can be seen in us. We don't just sit there thinking, oh yes, there's Buddha nature everywhere. This is just what Dogen was asking about when he went to China. His great question. Since all beings are part of Buddha nature, since the truth is everywhere, why do we need to train? And he understood for himself, because training and enlightenment are one. Because we have to do the fanning, we have to put it into practice in order to actualize our innate enlightenment. Otherwise it's useless, it's just dormant. Doesn't mean it's not there, we're just not manifesting it. Because knowing that Buddha nature is everywhere intellectually, as a young monk did, it's not enough. We have to put it into practice. We never stop training, we never go beyond training. And the teacher doesn't try to explain this to this monk in words, he just merely fans himself. And the monk gets it, and he bows respectfully. Oh, thank you, I get it. Dogen goes on. One who thinks that fanning is not needed, that we don't have to train ourselves, simply because wind or Buddha nature is stationary by nature and requires no fan, since it can be sensed, understands nothing whatsoever of its nature and its eternal presence, always here. It is because it is eternally here that the wind of Buddhism makes the earth golden and the rivers run with ghee. Lovely, lovely. Buddha nature is always right here, right within us, right all around us. We live within it just as the fish live in the water and the birds live in the sky without even knowing it. Whether we know it or not, it is the case. And it makes the earth golden and the rivers run with ghee, whether we see it like that or not. Some people do, they do see the earth golden. Great, I never have. But it doesn't matter, because Buddha nature is within everything, nothing left out, no matter what it may be, how seemingly defiled, difficult, awkward, how much suffering there may be, is all part of that. And that's why we use the fan, that's why we do our training, so that we make it manifest. Help us, help ourselves, and help the world by just doing the practice. Not trying to be something special, not thinking, here I am practicing my enlightenment, just doing the what needs to be done, washing the dishes, doing the next thing, with as much love and attention as we can muster, simply wholeheartedly putting the teaching into practice. Entrusting ourselves to our Buddha nature, entrusting ourselves to that. The fish entrust themselves to the ocean, they don't think, Is this water going to hold me up? No, they don't think about it. They just swim around. Birds entrusting themselves to the sky, They don't think about it. They just fly. That's their nature. And for us, we can just entrust ourselves to Buddha nature, put it into practice as best we can. And that's Dogen's teaching for us for today.